Over the years, Edvard Munch's The Scream has conjured up both frightened and hilarious reactions from art lovers. But as iconic as the painting has become, a mystery regarding one strange aspect of the famous work has long stumped experts. Inscribed on one of the 4 original copies, a strange message was found in the paint. Had the work been vandalized, or were the startling words written by the artist himself? After years of debate, we finally have the answer. Hidden meaning of the scream has finally been uncovered. The news sent shockwaves through the art world. After all, revelations about iconic paintings don't exactly pop up too often. Yet beyond its place as an influential masterpiece, The Scream has come to be seen as much more than just a couple of brushstrokes in a frame. From The Simpsons to Home Alone, Munch's painting has inspired plenty of pop culture references and imitations. It's even gotten to the point where many recognize the painting itself, but not its creator. Though many have parodied the painting's terrorized face in good fun over the years, the history behind The Scream is much darker than most know. Norwegian painter Edvard Munch created the famous expressionist art piece back in 1893. Titled Der Schrei der Naturswirls, The Scream of Nature, Munch painted the piece to express the anxiety of his time. Some believed he'd actually captured this sense of terror a little too well, as many were convinced the artist was truly unhinged. During World War II, Munch's reputation actually led him to become an enemy of the German regime. They didn't care for his paintings and made sure to remove them from German museums, believing the pieces to have been crafted by a madman. This stigma of madness haunted Munch throughout his life, as his works almost always consisted of dark themes. Along with fear as featured in The Scream, Munch's paintings and drawings often placed an emphasis on feelings of melancholy, loneliness, jealousy, and, occasionally, love. Munch once said, "Illness, insanity, and death were the black angels that kept watch over my cradle and accompanied me all my life." Several tragedies from his past no doubt contributed to his struggles with such darkness. Munch had an extremely religious father, whom he rebelled against in his youth. Then, while Munch was young, he had to deal with several tragic deaths. The artist's mother died from tuberculosis when he was just 5 years old, and he lost his elder sister to the same illness when he was 14. Later, he lost his father and a brother, too. But the scream hadn't manifested solely from Munch's pain. He was actually involved in a real situation that he took inspiration from. The artist had been on a nature walk with 2 companions when he realized he was all alone. Suddenly, the clouds turned blood red, and within him he sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. The fence featured in The Scream was believed to be a barrier that protected the terrified figure from the overwhelming swirl of madness beyond. While the fence acted as protection, it was not absolute. The figure in the foreground was still affected by the danger along the boundaries, as expressed by its terrified face. Some speculate the experience could have been caused by separation anxiety, which Munch suffered from throughout his life. Never married, the artist grew old and referred to his paintings as his children. He surrounded himself with his pieces, hating to be apart from them. After his death in 1944 at age 80, a collection of 4,443 drawings, 15,391 prints, and 1,008 paintings was found scattered throughout Munch's home. The Scream was the last time Munch ever attempted its distinct style. The figure might have been stuck in a now iconic expression of terror, but a certain madness could be seen within the distorted image. It was a radical attempt, perhaps lending some hints to the mysterious phrase found on one of the originals. Among the 4 original copies of The Scream, only one held a particular mystery to it. Found along the top left corner of the portrait, someone faintly inscribed the phrase, "Could only have been painted by a madman." In pencil. Who could have done it? Thierry Ford, paintings conservator of the National Museum of Norway, uncovered the first clue. Using a microscope, Ford discovered that the pencil marks were applied to the artwork after the paint had dried. Did this confirm that the painting was actually vandalized? It wasn't until 2021 that a curator for the National Museum of Norway took the next step toward answering this pressing question. With the help of an infrared camera, Britt Gouling and a team of curious experts were able to bring the message into better focus, though this clarity only left them with yet another startling possibility to weigh. Could the words have been written by the artist himself? After all, Munch was no stranger to mental illness. With this hypothesis in mind, the team compared the message on the painting to Munch's handwriting found in his diaries and letters. Their findings were undeniable. The handwriting was a match. Munch himself had printed the cruel message on his own painting. But why? Well, according to researchers, the answer lies in a key incident that occurred when Munch debuted the Scream in his home country back in 1895. During its first public exhibition in Norway at the Blomkvist Gallery, the Scream was met with much criticism. But while the work had generated mixed reactions during several tours abroad, the words of one individual from the Blomkvist event left Munch shaken. The critic was Johan Scharfenberg, a medical student, who made a point of harping on Munch's reputation as a madman. It was a low blow to the artist, especially given his difficult family history and his own struggles with despair and mental illness. Munch frequently reflected upon the event in letters and diary entries. Gouling believes Scharfenberg's comments had a devastating effect on Munch, one that prompted him to deface his own painting. The inscription can be read as an ironic comment, she explained, but at the same time as an expression of the artist's vulnerability. We may never know if Munch's words were meant to be ironic or self-deprecating, but to deface one's own masterpiece seems like a questionable move, no matter which way you split it. After all, when it comes to hidden messages, most legendary artists chose to hide them within their paintings, rather than on top of them. Da Vinci's Mona Lisa is one of the most famous pieces of art ever created. There is so much mystery surrounding Mona Lisa that historians continue to study the painting today, and after all these years she still has secrets to reveal. In 2015, a French scientist using reflective light technology discovered a portrait of another woman hiding beneath the painting we see now. The underlying portrait is believed to be Da Vinci's first draft of the famous painting, but it's difficult to confirm if that belief is true or not. Jan van Eyck, the Netherlandish painter, created the famous Arnolfini portrait in 1434. The painting depicts Giovanni di Niccolao Arnolfini, an Italian merchant, and his wife, Costanza Trenta. While the renowned work is impressive in itself, there's more to the painting than meets the eye. Take a closer look, you'll see a mirror centered in the background of the painting. Reflected in the mirror are two other figures who appear to be looking at the Arnolfinis. Based on our logic of mirrors, one of the figures is presumed to be the artist, Van Eyck, subtly eternalizing himself in the portrait. We can't talk about art without bringing up the chiseled bust of David. Arguably one of the greatest sculptures of all time, Michelangelo's statue of David stands 17 feet tall. Seriously, we have to admit, David doesn't really have a bad angle going for him. But looking up at David does distort one thing that might change the way you consider the work. David is positioned in a heroic manner. Due to its size, when we admire the statue we are forced to look up at him. His body is anatomical perfection, and, paired with his confident stance, David is often thought to be sculpted as hero. Looking at David at eye level reveals a different story. His expression shows concern and fear, which makes sense after all, given he is about to engage in a battle with Goliath. This one is a touch macabre. In 1533, Hans Holbein the Younger painted the Ambassadors. The work showcases two rich ambassadors, seemingly healthy and in their prime, surrounded with their fine material goods. While the portrait is strikingly rich in color, the hues defy the underlying message of the work, which is far from vivifying. Looming at the feet of the ambassadors is an anamorphic perspective of a skull. The skull, with its placement and perspective, seems so stark that it feels like it doesn't belong in the painting. This piece was intended to hang in a stairwell so, at the angle of ascension, the skull would jump right out at you. The skull was to serve as a memento mori, which translates to, remember you will die. So much for a welcome mat, huh? Despite his name, Peter Bruegel the Elder is not a wizard. Unfortunately. What he is though, is one of the most notable artists of the Dutch and Flemish Renaissance painting. In 1559, he created the Netherlandish proverbs. It may look more like a Neanderthal-ish bedlam, but this raucous scene is actually telling a story, 112 stories to be exact. The artist is known for inserting the absurdity of humanity in his work, and he didn't miss a beat with this one. The painting literally illustrates 112 different proverbs and sayings from the Netherlands. Some of which include, to be a pillar biter and armed to the teeth. But the real proverb here is, if you're not Dutch, you're not getting much, at least not much face time in a Bruegel painting. The Sistine Chapel. You may have heard of it, the big painted chapel in the Apostolic Palace, nestled in the Vatican City. Well, way back in 1512, Michelangelo was commissioned by Pope Julius II to paint the story of Genesis across 9 sections of the concave ceiling. Michelangelo's work would come to be recognized as a cornerstone of high Renaissance art. Some speculate that beyond a masterpiece, the artist also left behind a message. Michelangelo spent many years studying human anatomy. With that deep understanding, the artist was able to depict people with greater realism and insert more cerebral meaning into his paintings. In this famous section, God is surrounded by what looks like a brain. This insinuates that not only did God give Adam life, but also the ability to reason and think. The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci is almost as famous for its rumors of secret meanings as it is for its artistic brilliance. Da Vinci was unique in his genius, and much of that is due to his vast and diverse passions. Not only an artist, Da Vinci identified as a mathematician, scientist, inventor, and even a musician. And when a fellow musician admired Da Vinci's work, he noticed something peculiar. When the 5 lines of a musical staff are drawn across the supper, the bread rolls combined with the apostles' hands create musical notes. When you follow Da Vinci's signature style of right to left, the notes make up a 40-second musical composition. Vincent van Gogh created Café Terrace at Night in 1888, a scene so charming, you can almost hear accordions. Some art historians have a different take on this painting though. There are theories that posit this cafe might have a more symbolic impetus, coming from the son of a Protestant minister. There have been many comparisons with Van Gogh's Café Terrace and Da Vinci's Last Supper. The central figure in white is thought to be a representation of Jesus, while the dark figure in the doorway is speculated to represent Judas. There is a good story here, but first let's take a moment to appreciate the name of this painting's creator, Hieronymus Bosch. Oh, it's so good. Hieronymus Bosch is the creator behind this triptych oil painting titled, The Garden of Earthly Delights. What is even more delightful are the secret behind-the-scenes notes. These notes, found on the bottom of a tortured soul in the hell panel of the painting, translate into approximately 28 seconds of what can only be described as a reject Nokia ringtone. This melody is widely referred to as the butt song from hell. The legendary Mexican painter Frida Kahlo had a husband who was, apparently, a painter as well. Just kidding, Diego Rivera is totally a big shot. Due to his notoriety, in the early 1940s, Nelson Rockefeller commissioned Rivera to paint a mural, Man at the Crossroads, for the Rockefeller Center in New York City. Alas, even the richest of the rich don't always get exactly what they want. Young Rockefeller didn't appreciate the inclusion of the communist revolutionary Vladimir Lenin in the mural, so he had the painting destroyed. In response, Rivera recreated the mural in 1943 in Mexico City and titled it, Man, the Center of the Universe. Not only was Lenin even more prominently featured in this mural, but Rivera, not so coyly, painted Rockefeller's father below the bacterial illustration of syphilis. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.